Hey everyone, it's OSK. Today I'll welcome you to another episode of Spellbreak Academy. This will be episode number 5 for Playstyle. Spellbreak Academy is a quick little series that I put together that'll kind of talk you through the more advanced concepts of Spellbreak and hopefully help you with your fights in the Hollowlands and also just help out the game knowledge that some of you so desperately need, that I still need to rehearse on. Everyone knows that I'm not known in the community for my mechanics, so all the game knowledge I can get is going to help me win my game. So that's kind of what I'm imparting onto you by showing you this series. We're going to be getting into this video very, very shortly. If you would, though, please leave a like if you like what you see by the time we're done. And also, if you'd like to see more content, please be sure to subscribe. We're going to be covering more than just Spellbreak here in the future. I think I have my Crimson Desert script is almost done, so you'll probably see that before too long, so hopefully you're excited for that. And of course, more Spellbreak content in the works. But now that we're done with that, let's get into this. So we're going to be covering, again, Playstyle today, and this is going to be, I'm going to try to make it a little bit of a shorter topic, but still a lot of explanation to be had here. So what is a playstyle? It's defined as how a player approaches and deals with a situation in a game. This can involve strategy, mechanics, and also player tendencies. Typically in Spellbreak, you're going to see it defined by whatever classes, talents, offhand gauntlets, and runes you run that can all potentially inform a playstyle via what kind of resources it provides the player. And what I mean by this is that some classes, such as Toxicologists, will give you plenty of dashes, plenty of ways to move around. It'll also inform how close the opponent wants to be to you in order to affect the most amount of damage possible. You'll see this with Pyromancer as well. Typically, you want to keep them at a close to mid-range. With Conduit, you want to keep them at a distance. All of these things can factor into what exactly type of playstyle that you want to bring to the game and also what your opponent is trying to enforce on you. And I have at the bottom here, playstyle can be determined through a range of factors. And what I really use to determine just the bare playstyle itself, no classes or runes or talents, offhand gauntlets, anything like that, is your aggression / passivity, whether you want to get in an opponent's face or if you want to kind of keep at a distance and just tag from afar while not getting in the immediate danger. Also, your preferred range of engagement kind of goes with what I just said with aggression and passivity, but you can also be aggressive at a long range as well. So just a little layer for you. And also movement style. Now, what I mean by movement style is, are you going to be one that's trying to trick your opponent, trying to fake out your opponent up close like with a dash or a spring step rune? Or are you going to be using your movement options to create that distance, to separate yourself out from the action, to sort of, you know, keep everyone at arm's length, which is a topic that I really like getting into quite a lot. It's a good strategy that I run quite a lot. So all of this factors into your playstyle. It helps define you as a player and also helps define your opponent as a player. So understanding these concepts and what your opponent's tendencies are going to be while you are fighting them, or even maybe before you're fighting them, can really help give you an edge when you're playing Spellbreak. So let's get into our next slide here. We're going to talk about how to develop a playstyle. So if you're brand new to the game, there's a lot of things that are being thrown at you all at once. You have runes to deal with, offhand gauntlets, the elemental interactions, the classes, the talents. There's so much to keep up with. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult to develop a playstyle from a game, let's say like Call of Duty or Apex, where for the most part it's just whatever gun you pick up and it's pretty much hide behind cover, you know, use your angles, and whenever you shoot, it's basically a hit scan that goes directly to your opponent. Well, Spellbreak is not like that. There's plenty of projectiles in the game. There's plenty of sort of nuance in the game that you're going to have to learn in order to develop your playstyle. And kind of what goes into developing a playstyle we'll get into right now. We'll start off with determining your proficiency of mechanics. So this is going to be different for every player. If you come from an FPS background or maybe from a Fortnite background or something along the lines of, you know, pointing and clicking and shooting, rotating with your mouse, or if you're coming from console, that can factor into how good you are on the sticks. Basically, what I list here for determining your proficiency of mechanics is how good are you at aiming, what is your fluidity of movement, and especially what are your actions per minute. Are you going to be someone who's doing a whole lot of things in a very short amount of time, or are you going to be taking your time, you're going to shoot and then move and then shoot instead of just shoot, move, shoot? Like, how quickly you're going to be doing these things, and how comfortable are you with whatever inputs that you have, whether it's keyboard or mouse, or whether it is you on the sticks as a controller. So that's going to determine your proficiency of mechanics. That's going to help inform your play style. Typically, if you're not as good at mechanics, you're going to be picking classes or weapons that aren't going to rely as heavily on pinpoint accuracy, on these fast twitch muscle movements that'll help you navigate yourself around the opponent in an aggressive way. Typically, you want to keep yourself at a distance so you don't have to worry about as many of these things. But the further away you get, of course, the more pinpoint you have to be with your aim. So it kind of trades off in that way. Also, you want to find out your aptitude for your prediction of projectile trajectory. And I mean this like in the sense of if you're picking Pyromancer or you have a fire offhand, you're going to have to get good at predicting where that fireball is going to be in relation to where your opponent is traveling. So if your opponent's traveling to the left, you better know how far ahead of the opponent to shoot in order for that fireball to connect. Because if you're not good at that, then maybe fire isn't going to be the best weapon for you. Maybe you want to choose Toxic instead. Maybe you want to choose Conduit instead. Conduit is great for players that are new to Spellbreak and just Lightning in general, because it is as close to hit scan as you can get. It's the most familiar as far as from previous battle royales. I know PUBG, for example, Fortnite to an extent as well. They all have projectile-based bullets, so you're going to have to lead your target a little bit, and Conduit is going to be sort of that element to bridge the gap between that game and Spellbreak. So basically, this will improve over time, but it's still something you want to keep an eye on when you're developing your playstyle. Your relative reaction time kind of factors into your APM, but basically, how fast are you going to react whenever you say get hit by a stray fireball or get, you know, something happens to you? Like say you see an opponent moving your way. How fast are you going to react to that and develop a response for it? Like whenever something goes wrong, how fast are you going to be to fix it? So this will improve over time. Again, reaction time is one of those things, like sheer reaction time, mostly based on your genetics, but as you get more and more experienced with the game, you're going to learn how to react to different scenarios. So your playstyle may morph whenever you get, say, more apt or more experienced with what exactly is in the game and what exactly to watch out for. But still, relative reaction time going to help you develop a playstyle. And that's also going to determine how aggressive and passive you want to be in your preferred playstyle. Like say you have a really, really low reaction time, probably don't want to be up close and personal where you might have multiple enemies to contend with. You might want to stay back, play a backline build like Frostborn or Conduit, and just, you know, keep yourself out of the immediate danger while still being able to damage the opponent in front of you. Also, this kind of feeds into the experience with the game and game knowledge, like I said earlier. It's all going to factor into pretty much everything that I've already listed. And we're going to get into our next topic, confidence in one's ability. This is kind of tying everything together. It's going to inform how aggressive you want to be. Obviously, if you're not confident, you don't want to be up in the middle of the action, like I said earlier. You want to kind of hang back and, you know, see things clearly as far as what exactly is going on with the particular engagement, what's going on with your team, and you want to, if you're not confident in your ability, you just don't want to put yourself in any more pressure than you need to be. Now, if you are very confident with all these things above that topic, with your experience, with your relative reaction time, your aptitude for prediction of projectile trajectory, and also your proficiency in mechanics, you're going to be really confident in your abilities. You might be able to challenge yourself and take on, say, a whole squad by yourself sometimes if you are good enough. So that is something to think about, and it's something that's going to help you develop a playstyle as you move forward with the game. Typically, what I see is a lot of new players will pick up Stone Shaper or Conduit because they're not really all that confident. They either want the high damage or they want to stay back and kind of get that familiar lightning-based projectile that they're very, very familiar with. So as you develop with the game, your playstyle should develop as well. And we're going to be getting into our next topic here. Your playstyle is going to inform your class choice. And here I kind of have just, you know, your basic descriptions of each class. And it's going to help you, especially if you're new and you're still figuring out your playstyle. This might help you kind of nail down what exactly you want to do. For Stone Shaper, you have a close range grounded brawler with good movement mix-ups. And it also comes with it a bit of armor regeneration. You have the movement mix-up would be bedrock and everything you can perform out of there. It also has, as far as brawler goes, not only can you use your spells, but the boulders that you have access to have very, very fast animations, and you can actually land some pretty nasty combos by doing a double boulder into a shockwave combo, or a double boulder into a fireball combo. Like there's really cool things you can do. That's why I call it a brawler instead of anything else. You're really able to land that left, and then if you want to get really aggressive, that left, right, left. You know, you can really mix up your movement, mix up your speed of attacks, and it can be devastating for your opponent. Now, going on to Conduit, obviously it's going to be your long-range control mage. I use control. It's a term that I've learned from playing different card games. I don't think TCG is the right one. I'm thinking of stuff like Hearthstone, like Elder Scrolls Legends when it wasn't on live support. Like a control mage would be someone who basically slows down the pace of the game and makes you play as slow as they do, and they will always have the advantage whenever you make your opponent dictate themselves according to your speed of the game. So that's why I use control mage here. Conduit, obviously long range. Your lightning, you want to stay at a bit of a distance. It's not going to be that big up close burst damage. It's going to be that long range, constant hammering of the enemy's health bar. And this is really good for, again, new players. The projectile speed that you have out of Conduit makes it almost hit scan. And there's also some cool CC abilities, like you can stun your opponent. You can combo that into a number of different elemental interactions. One of the favorites that I see out here is people are running Conduit with the wind offhand. It allows you to lay down a tornado to control your enemy, and then land down a quick low lightning strike while your opponent's being sucked into that tornado. It's very, very difficult to deal with sometimes, and it's overall just a really, really annoying build for me, admittedly, but a very, very great build for people who are just getting used to the game, because wind in very similar terms is just like lightning offhand, but for close range. Going into wind, though, Tempest, going to be your hive movement with high damage. This is going to be something you probably want to pick up when you're more experienced with the game, whenever you have your APM up, whenever you're feeling more confident in everything else, and you feel like you can land your shots and all the above. Tempest is going to be your high movement with high damage, and I should have put high mechanical ability, but in any case, if you've ever seen Marcus, aka Apostle, which if you are here, you probably have seen him before, or if you've seen Tacos, another great Tempest streamer, then you're going to know what Tempest is all about. It's all about that high movement, that high APM, and it's all about that high damage whenever you're in the air. So definitely can help you with a more aggressive play style. Sometimes you want to play a little bit back and run a frost offhand as opposed to the normal fire. Sometimes you want to be up close and personal with a toxic offhand. It's all depending on what kind of play style you want to run with. Going on to Pyromancer, this is one of my favorites for people learning. Fire is one of the most basic things about Spellbreak as far as the projectile speed and as far as getting used to the overall theme of the game. It really introduces you very well to the elemental side of things, and it introduces you well to the projectile-based elements of the game. So getting good at fire is going to just make everything so much easier for you, because fire goes well on a lot of things, and it's a staple. So for Pyromancer itself, though, you have that increased area of effect. It's gonna make hitting the opponent with anything a little bit easier of a time. Your explosion radius from the combust skill, as well as the ignite's going to just provide you extra damage that you wouldn't have before. So it's really, really nice. Also, it has conflagration later on. So if you miss the initial fireball and they happen to run into one of those smaller ones, then that just adds the damage on for you. It's really, really nice. Also, the style that fire really brings to you, it kind of has this happy medium of distance that I discussed earlier on in episode 4. We call it the pocket, where it's that optimal range for you to land these fireballs without giving your opponent very much room to dodge them. So you kind of want to be in between mid to close range. It helps you find out what exactly is going to be the optimal range in comparison to certain things, and it's just an overall really, really good class for a new player to get involved in. So definitely use it whenever you're first starting, and if you need to get back to the roots, Pyromancer is a really good class to run for that purpose. Now, Toxicologist is a lot like Tempest, a little bit less so, though. It's very, very simple. You're a close-range burst damage style of mage, and also it has a very, very special interaction with invisibility. Most players like to run Shadow Step as a Toxicologist, along with Runic Fluency, to get as much benefit out of Outbreak as possible. And it's one of those more mechanically intensive, very aggressive style of classes. So basically what you want to do is you want to lay down your Toxic Cloud first thing to go ahead and engage in, and then you want to follow up with your shadow steps. Now, if you're not mechanically gifted, or you're not very practiced, then you're not going to hit as much damage on your toxic slaps as what you should to make toxicologist viable for you. So this is kind of more of an advanced style of class. It's something that you want to practice on with the different elements of it. Maybe you want to one-trick it to really get really good at landing those toxic slaps. And also, typically we see Frost offhand to handle those long-range engagements where it's not as good. So this is just one of those things where you want to make sure that you're very good mechanically before you jump into this, and you want to make sure that you are very, very comfortable with all the different elements of Spellbreak so that you can give yourself the best chance of winning, basically. Going on to Frostborn here, it's just like Conduit, except it's burst damage. Frost is basically a sniper rifle. In this game, you have a charge up time, you let go, and then it shoots for legendary rarity at full charge, does about 72 damage, which is a pretty good chunk. So it also has damage mods in addition to that, as well as things to help mitigate your mana consumption, and it also gives extra utility like extra move speed. You can highlight nearby enemies that aren't invisible. You can also, this is a big one, you can activate your flash freeze to activate a skill called Tundra, which basically makes you immune to damage for 0.65 seconds. It's really, really good for covering your teammates. It's also really good if you're in a tight spot, you need to freeze your opponent and not take any damage doing it. You can just lay down that flash freeze, get that CC up, and then hit them with another Frost. Again, you want to make sure you're very mechanically gifted or very mechanically practiced before you hop on the Frostborn. It is a sniper, and the Frostborn or the Frost Gauntlet itself is not hit scan. It's one of the more iconic projectiles in the game. It shoots very fast, but there is a little bit of prediction and there is bullet drop. So you want to make sure that you're very, very practiced, say in Clash or in the practice tool, before you hop into Frostborn. One of the less aggressive style of play styles, but you still want to make sure that you're mechanically intensive so you can properly play it passively and then switch to that aggression if you need to. All right, going into our talent selection here, I just listed a few options for you for different talent informed builds. So your playstyle is also going to inform your talent selection. If you are having trouble with surviving in your fights and you want to last a little bit longer, maybe you want to pick up talents such as Recovery, Thirsty, or Harmony. Maybe if you are more mechanically gifted, or you just really want to see your opponents die a little bit faster in fewer shots, then you want to pick something like Focus Mana and Recklessness. Or if you really want to focus on your high mobility, the very bread and butter of Spellbreak, you want to go for high mobility. You want to pick something like Escapist and Runic Fluency. And these are just example talent builds that I've picked out. You could go the Glass Cannon, burst damage oriented here. Oops, let me go back to previous. Tried to highlight, but it doesn't do it when it's in presentation. But so for like a burst damage oriented, you can run this on Pyromancer or Tempest or pretty much anything you want. But Focus Mana, Fervor, and Recklessness Focus Mana, giving you that extra damage by keeping your mana high. Fervor is just blanket cast speed. And then Recklessness, whenever you're out of armor, you get that extra damage. And also the lessened mana consumption. It's all very, very good things. It's very damage oriented. So if you want to kill them in fewer shots, run this build. For sustain, I picked Harmony, Dexterity, and Thirsty. Harmony because you get that sheer damage reduction, but also you get CC immunity. So if you're having trouble going up against Frostborns or people with Frost Gauntlets, picking Harmony to make yourself immune to that freeze is going to help you out when you're first learning. Also, Dexterity, really good training wheels to kind of get you used to how levitation works and the different mana costs that it has with it. You want to make sure you're not overly relied on Dexterity, but it is still a pretty good option, especially if you want to run it with Spring Step or something like that. Dexterity helps you a lot. Just overall reduces your levitation mana cost and also boosts your jump speed. So if that's something you like, pick Dexterity. Also Thirsty, probably one of the best talents in the game right now. You're able to just drink potions faster and also heal your teammates if you're in a squad or duo situation. It's very, very nice. Very good sustain-oriented talent. And then for higher mobility, Runic Fluency going to give you that extra charge on your rune and also reduce cooldown. Fervor for cast speed, of course. This is especially important if you're running something like Tempest. Fervor helps give you faster access to that high speed mobility that Tempest offers. As well as Escapist just gives you base movement running speed, and also if you get hit, it boosts your speed even further. So if you like mobility, you're going to be picking Runic Fluency, Fervor, and Escapist. Now, going through what sort of play styles that you want to be running with all these things, the damage-oriented build, you want to be very, very aggressive in their face, making sure that you're landing all of your shots. This is going to require you to be very mechanically intense. You want to make sure that you're, again, landing all your shots and not missing very much, or you're just going to be toast. So, Focus Mana, Fervor, and Recklessness really helps get you that big damage out very, very fast. Sustain, this is more of like a careful build. You can play this in the back line to sort of support your team. Also, you can play it in solos as well if you just want to take less damage and you're even more confident with hitting your shots, because you're going to have less access to damage. You will be more defensive based, so you really have to make up that offense as well, because offense right now in today's meta is a little bit better than defense. So make sure you keep that in mind. And also, for the high mobility, this is basically if you want to run Tempest or anything like Toxicologist, that'll help you give access to stuff that is very, very intense as far as runes and all of that sort of mix-up ability that some of these classes have. Runic Fluency and Escapist with Fervor is very, very good on Toxicologist. You have that extra charge of Shadow Step that can give you the extra access to Outbreak. And then Escapist helps to keep your movement speed up, makes you harder to hit by giving you that extra run speed, and it also helps you catch up to your opponent faster as well. And then Tempest, I don't think I need to go any further. It's all about the speed, and everything about this style of build is going to all be about informing your speed. It's very, very good. Now, going into our last slide here, we have playing to your strengths and your opponent's weaknesses. This is kind of tying everything together as far as play style. It's meshing your play style with your opponent's play style. And I'm going to kind of go over once again some of these classes. Pyromancer is a great option for mid-range. Conduit's a great option for long range. And Toxicologist is great for close range. I wanted to get sort of these tropes out of the way for you so that you can kind of figure out where I'm trying to go with this. Now, I have a little passage that I'm just going to read to you. I know you can read by yourself, but also part of it is blocked off by my webcam. I apologize. I'll read the whole thing through, and then we'll kind of dive into it. So what this is just recognize what both you and your opponent are trying to do with your particular builds and play styles. Winning a fight is a mix of playing to your own strengths and playing to your opponent's weaknesses. Sometimes you will need to adjust your playstyle fight to fight in order to give yourself the best chance for victory. Offhand gauntlets and runes serve to bolster your strengths as well as cover your weaknesses. Each fight will likely have to be played slightly differently to compensate for one factor or another. And what I mean by all this is basically you're going to be taking fights in different ways depending on what your opponent is trying to do. So let's say you're running a Pyromancer and you have a Toxic offhand. It gives you access to that giant Dragonfire explosion that everyone really loves. And you want to run a dash rune you just want to run a dash rune because it's one of the best runes in the game right now. So let's kind of focus on what your playstyle should be by running this particular build. You're going to be wanting to keep the fight at a close to mid-range. You have a great option for your close range, be it fire, and actually your toxic. So close range is very, very favorable for you. You typically want to keep them at arm's length with Pyromancer, but if they get too close, then you can slap them with quick toxic, and it's really good. Also, you can surprise people with a quick little entry of Dragonfire. It also helps if you're kind of backing away from an opponent and you want to get this large area of effect that you're not too comfortable hitting, but it still gives you the extra chance of hitting. Then you can throw a Toxic Cloud, light it on fire with the Dragonfire, and it's really good. So if you're going to be playing to your opponent's weaknesses, let's say you're running up against a Frostborn, you're going to want to keep the fight close so that you eliminate the Frost from that equation. Also got to be careful of the Flash Freeze, though, so maybe you don't want to be too close to them. Maybe you want to keep them at arm's length, but still trying to hit them with that Fireball or Toxic, whatever you need to do. But it kind of changes up what kind of range you want to fight in. You don't want to fight long range. You don't want to fight close range. You want to find that happy medium, and that's where, like in the previous video, finding the pocket is going to be really, really important. Also, let's say you're running up against Conduit. It's going to be very, very important for you to be as up close and personal as possible with someone like Conduit, because they are not very good at close range most of the time. You have more options on your in your kit, so it's going to be more important for you to be close range. And the dash rune should help you do that. Dash and Spring Step in general are really, really great runes. They're just great runes in general. The low cooldown's great, the travel speed's great, but it's going to help you close that distance a little bit better. And if your opponent's trying to get too close to you to kind of do what they want to do, then that dash is a great tool to either get close or create distance, either way. If you're running conduit, you want to keep your opponent at a much longer arm's length, keep them at long range. And let's say for a rune, you want to run something like teleport. And for your offhand, you want to have fire just in case they get too close for your lightning to be effective. To be very effective, you have that burst option for mid and close range for fire. Typically, what you see is focus mana, fervor, and thirsty. Gives you great cast speed as well as that extra damage, especially from power surge. You can lay down your lightning strike, get that free mana for 4 seconds, and then let your focus mana just go for it, just like that. And you don't really have to worry about runes either, because conduit also has overload, which replenishes your rune by throwing down a lightning strike, which is very, very nice. So your teleport should be able to serve you well in keeping that distance going. And this is something very, very common that I see on the competitive scene and also in my solo games too. So if you're up against someone like a toxicologist, for example, as a conduit, you want to make sure that you're keeping as much distance as possible. You want to make sure you're keeping track of what their cooldowns are. If they're running dash, it's not as important. But if they are running something like Shadow Step, you have to recognize that there's an amount of time that they cannot use Shadow Step again unless they have runic fluency. So you don't want to be too close to prevent the max damage that they can get from something like Outbreak. And also you want to stay away from the toxic clouds as well, because it's for much the same purpose. They can use their Vanishing Mist skill to re-enter the toxic cloud and then hit you for a nice little outbreak. So keeping your distance, making sure that they're as far away as possible, pretty much what you want to do for a conduit, and conduits in general can just do that very well because lightning is very, very strong right now. So it's very, very good. Toxicologist, I kind of went over it already. Typically want to play close range. You typically want to run an offhand frost to cover that long range. It's very, very good at doing that. Toxicologist makes this a very good jack of all trades sort of class. But there is that little window in mid-range where it is weak, so you want to make sure that you're keeping the fight close, and if they get too far away, you have your frost offhand to finish them off. So that's kind of what we're trying to explain here, playing to your strengths and your opponent's weaknesses. You want to adjust... You want to adjust yourself with each fight. If you're a toxicologist playing as pyromancer, maybe you don't want to be playing as recklessly with your Vanishing Mist. You want to be a little bit more careful on where you place it. You want to make sure that you're landing all the damage that you can instead of just getting in their face, because it can really blow up in your face if you're not careful. Unless you're very, very confident and aggressive, then you can activate a Shadow Step and land that big damage and out DPS your opponent. So it's a little bit different class to class, but typically you just want to be adjusting to what your opponent's trying to do, as well as keeping everything in mind that we discussed in the previous video for combat that we discussed in episode 4. So to recap and conclude this lovely little presentation here, you want to learn your strengths and weaknesses. You want to make sure that you know how good you are with your aim, how good you are with your APM, or your actions per minute, how comfortable you are with your inputs, and also keep in mind your knowledge of the game to make sure that you really know, you can really pigeonhole yourself. Am I a newer player? Do I need to be playing this class to learn the ins and outs of Spellbreak? Or am I more confident? Am I mechanically talented? Can I handle, say, a close range shotgun and also a long range sniper? Like, just think about that for your own self and then make a decision as to what class and offhand and rune and talent that you want to run. Pick a class that you're comfortable with in accordance with your own unique playstyle. Just explain that. Pick talents that also bolster your natural tendencies in game. If you hate CC, pick Harmony. If you like damage, pick Fervor and Focus Mana. Just stuff that you know you're good at, that you know you're going to be having a good time with. Pick those talents and make sure you actually read them, because some people like to read... don't like to read talents. They don't know what they're going in with. And also, don't pick Vital Stone. It's a bad talent. Don't ever pick it for any reason, unless it's for memes. Also, try to cover your natural weaknesses via your offhand gauntlets and runes. And this kind of ties into also bolstering your natural strengths. Just make sure that your runes and your offhand gauntlet is either covering something that your class doesn't have, or it's bolstering something that your class does have. And then make sure that you play to that strength and never play out of it. And also adjust your playstyle and adapt to every scenario that you face. You will very rarely get to engage every fight in exactly the same way. If you're up against newer players who also don't know what they're doing, this is a little bit different. You probably can approach most every fight in the same way. But once you get past level 23, you start hitting those more experienced players. This will definitely change. You'll have to adapt to every little scenario and just kind of, you know, make sure that you're very comfortable with whatever class you're running. Make sure you know its ins and outs, and also make sure that you're picking offhand gauntlets and runes that will help you in whatever your class is trying to do and whatever your opponent doesn't want you to do to them. So that is going to be the end of Spellbreak Academy episode number 5. Hope you enjoyed, guys. We're at about 30 minutes, so thanks for staying with me the whole way. If you'd like to see more, guys, please make sure, like I said at the beginning, to like the video, subscribe for more content like this, and also be on the lookout for my future content. Also, you can catch me out on the Element Twitch channel. Sometimes if there's a tournament, I'll be casting as well as in the Discord. Also, check out the podcast channel, Spellcast. It's going to be in the description. We're going to be having some more guests here very, very soon. So make sure that you are subscribed to that channel so you never miss a podcast, and make sure that you're you're up to date with all the big names in Spellbreaks. And guys, thanks again for watching. Be on the lookout for future content, and I will see you guys in the next one. Y'all have a great day, and I'll see you all out there.